Lord, we want to thank you for everything that you do. But all I have to say every month, let's think about prayer in school. Kids need prayer. White House pray, State House pray, but they won't let our kids pray. Let's think about it. Lord, bless us in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Moses. All right. Approval of the minutes. The commissioners have received their packet. They've had a chance to review the minutes from last month. I apologize to the commissioners. I missed last month, and our exceptionally talented vice chair, Mr. Howard, kind of filled in for us. So,
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
okay, I have a motion. I have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Moses. You cut that one short. All right. PC 2023-01. This is a request for sketch plan review of Wren Crest Townhomes to be located on Catherine's Court and specifically identified as Florence County Tax Map numbers 90079-01-012 and 90079-01-056. Staff report, please.
All right, good evening, everybody. So these are the parcels where the Wren Crest Townhomes is going to be located. This is between Second Loop Road and Catherine's Court. Ingress and egress access will be off of Catherine's Court, as well as stormwater, water, and wastewater. To the south is actually Lamb's Produce. Right, they do have a zoning. The north parcel has a zoning of NC 6.3, and the southern parcel has a zoning of commercial general. But for townhome conditions, they're the same in any zoning designation where they're permitted. So it would have the same conditions. And for future, it's split between neighborhood conservation and auto urban commercial. So the sketch plan, which has been revised, is in front of you now. That's what we printed out. So the total tract development will be 2.99 acres. They're proposing 29 townhome units in 4 buildings. Initially, we were unsure if the streets were going to be public or private. They are going to be public and built to city specifications. So we did get that clarified. Initially, it was going to be a gated community. We thought they were going to be private, but they've decided against that. So they will be public streets maintained by the city. And also, we wanted to make sure that the buffer yards that they're proposing to shield them from adjacent parcels was in common space and not on private property. So those issues were corrected, and this sketch plan is in compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. It also does show that subdivision is possible, so that each unit, each owner would have approximately 2,400 square feet if it were to be divided this way. And at the time of, we'll do the development plan, and then at the time of final plat, that's when this parcel will break off from the southern parcel and Lamb's Produce. So the parcel to the north and a portion of the Lamb's Produce parcel will be divided to be the townhome development, the 2.99 acres. And once sketch plan is approved, staff will have to go through the development plan process where we will look at any other Unified Development Ordinance regulations that need to be in compliance. And that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. This is this particular matter does not have a public hearing. This is strictly a sketch plan approval. Is there any questions of the commissioners of staff regarding this request?
I was just, is staff waiting to approve the sketch, or has they approved it?
They have, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, and you read your notes, that's good. There were some minor discrepancies that were going to be discussed with the developer. Those have been corrected, and Mr. Johnson's staff is saying that they have met the guidelines of the Unified Development Ordinance, and that's reflected in this new drawing right here.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Can you go, just tell me again, I see where the produce market is, and you said that at some point the produce market is facing Second Loop,
That's correct. Yes, sir.
and then at some point, give me that one more time.
The parcel will be split, subdivided, so that the townhome development is a different parcel than the Lamb's Produce parcel.
Okay.
So the northern parcel and the southern parcel will be combined, and then they will be separate from the Lamb's Produce.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? If hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Or excuse me, I'll call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. All right. Mr. Bilveris, congratulations. All right. PC 2023-02. This is a request for approval of a commercial easement to access 1015 South Ebenezer Road. Mr. Johnson?
All right, thank you, sir. So this is a parcel off South Ebenezer Road that includes Trinity Evangelical Presbyterian Church and also the King's Academy. So you can see the King's Academy, their buildings are to the west, and Trinity to the east, and is currently zoned campus. So the proposal is a split between the King's Academy and Trinity Evangelical Presbyterian Church. So it would look something like this. This is not the exact plat, and we're not approving a summary plat tonight. We're just approving, or Planning Commission is approving the access easement is adequate to serve this western portion that will encompass the King's Academy. So in doing this split, they will be cut off from public access. That necessitates the 50-foot access easement. And we also check to make sure that they'll have water access, and currently they have sewer through a private sewer service shared with a Trinity Evangelical Presbyterian Church. So here's just an aerial to kind of show you, and it's this southern driveway that will be used for access. And it right now it's in the works planning. We're reviewing the proposed elementary school, I believe, on the site of King's Academy. So that's why they're trying to gain access through that parcel. So before staff can approve this subdivision, this summary plat, the code says that Planning Commission must approve that adequate access is provided to this parcel if it is indeed split. And at that time, staff will review it to make sure all buildings meet proper setbacks and that any utility easements that need to be put in place are put in place, and that ingress and egress is afforded. So that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, we will have a public hearing. This will allow those that would like to get up and speak to do so, either in favor of this request or if you are not in favor of this request. If you'd like to come up, we're going to ask you to stand at the podium and introduce yourself. And I'm going to ask the ones that may not approve this request or maybe just have general questions to come forward if you would like to. Seeing none, I'll open it up to those. Mr. Finkley?
Mr. Chairman, good evening. I'm Gary Finkley. Happy New Year to everyone.
It's like there's a last minute decision. I mean, you were there.
Well, I was waiting on you to go to those who were in favor. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Keith, I'll be very brief. I have the pleasure of serving on the board of the King's Academy. The King's Academy leases the area described as 19.76 acres from Trinity Evangelical Presbyterian Church for a very nominal fee per year. The King's Academy is beginning to build an elementary school building. In connection with that, we had to procure a loan, which involves a mortgage. And the mortgage was only secured by our 19 acres that was leased. So that is why we've created this separate parcel here. It is not a separate tax parcel, actually. It's still going to remain as one parcel, but because we have created this description, staff has adequately pointed out, we need to have it approved. So for all intents and purposes, nothing's changing out there. This is not a separate parcel. I guess if it's ever foreclosed on by the bank, it would be a separate parcel, and that's why they need the approved easement. So we have all the utilities that we need out there. I'd like to introduce Rob Van Ness. He is the head of schools for the King's Academy. Mr. Moses, I would like to tell you that we are a Christian school, and we educate with a biblical worldview, and everything we do out there is to give glory to God and to train up a child in the way that Jesus would want. So that is our goal, to change hearts out there and minds and come fully alive in Christ. And we open enrollment in February, and we're looking for students. Okay? We've got an enrollment of 321 right now. We're looking to grow that a little bit. So in addition to asking for your approval for this, we ask for your prayers as we train up children with the biblical worldview and send them our way, and let's give them a chance. Give them a chance at King. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for serving. I appreciate it.
Mr. Finkley, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Finkley?
I got one for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to keep it brief.
Please.
I was trying to figure out why you wanted to divide it. Now, you really explained to me the purpose, because I was thinking, why would they want to divide a piece of land? I understand what you want to do. You want to make sure you get the funds to do what you want to do on that side of it. I understand.
The bank's requiring us to do
Yes.
it. The lawyers basically requiring us to do that. It's just the proper business way to do that.
Yes.
Okay. For all practical purposes, there will be no division. Thank you.
I'm satisfied.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Finkley.
Thank you very much.
That was a very well put presentation. I think there's not a commissioner here that would vote against it under those circumstances.
He'll try to get
Is anyone else would like to get up in favor of this? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you all very much. All right. PC 2023-03. Now, this is a request to rezone a parcel located on Dexter Drive. Ms. Elaine, good evening.
Good evening and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year to you.
This parcel is located on the corner of West Atwood Avenue and Dexter Drive and is near the Kirkwood subdivision, just before you get to Ansley Street and just south of the YMCA. It is a parcel that is about 450 feet long along Dexter and about 170 some feet deep. And the current zoning is NC 15, which is single family large lots, and that's what the majority of the neighborhood is. But as you can see, the area to the east of it is more of the NC 6.3, which is the zoning designation that the applicant is requesting. And he is requesting that, and the future land use has it as parks and open space, but obviously that doesn't go with what's been built up on that location. His purpose is to subdivide the lot and build single-family houses. And he would like to be able to get more lots off of that parcel. He would only be able to get 4 lots with the current zoning designation, and he would like to get 8. So it's a wooded lot right now, and that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. I do have a question. Has the applicant agreed to the 6.1, or is he still applying for 6.3?
He would still prefer the 6.3 just because that would enable him, he said the lot width he's looking at is 56 feet, and 6.1 requires a minimum of 60 feet width.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
The big difference between 6.1 and 6.3 is the width.
Multifamily and
The
duplex.
6.3 does permit anything, pretty much. It allows duplexes, townhouses, and multifamily. The 6.1 would only permit the single-family detached housing.
And what is adjacent? Would you put that map back up?
Sure. It's right in the middle.
That's hard.
There's apartments to the east of it, and there are patio homes to the north of it, and then larger single-family houses everywhere else. So it is right on a transitional zone right there. I have had some comments from neighbors that live in the neighborhood. They are okay with just single-family, but they're concerned about, vulnerability to being multifamily. They're not real happy about the smaller sizes, but they understand the mixed zoning there.
Great, thank you.
Does staff have a recommendation for it?
We did recommend the 6.1, mainly just so that it could be locked into single family.
He's requesting 6.3, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
So what our decision is, whether it's going to be 6.1 or 6.3?
Well, we'll decide that. We're going to have a public hearing, and then we'll discuss between us, is 6.3 appropriate?
So as the recommending body, it's really up to the planning commission to make a recommendation to city council on what the zoning should be. City staff obviously makes a recommendation on what we feel is most appropriate given the request. It should also be brought that we've been given, we received a call that there may or may not be restrictive covenants on this property. We've been given some information this evening, and we've got to do our research on that. We were not made aware of this. So depending on what those restrictive covenants state, or if this property is even in the restrictive covenants, will be brought to City Council. It is our recommendation that the Planning Commission proceed as normal, and that staff will address the restrictive covenants prior to this case going to City Council.
So will that be held over for next month's meeting, Planning Commission meeting, or are you going to go ahead and
No, we
go forward?
we'll review that, and then if it does apply, obviously the restrictive covenants supersede any zoning, and we will make a recommendation to City Council on what should occur if there are restrictive covenants that apply to this property.
Mr. Moore brought up a great point. We are just a recommending body. So no matter how we vote, the City Council is where the buck stops. But I will open the public hearing. Excuse me.
These colors are so similar.
Yes.
Yeah,
So here, I'll
All right.
I can use that stick. Okay.
Yeah.
So this obviously this is the property. This is Ansley. These are NC 15, so larger lot. They're 100 foot wide.
100 foot wide, 15,000 square foot.
Yeah, 15,000 square foot. This is 6.3,
Okay.
which allows for 55 or 50 foot wide lots. But all of these are multifamily units. So that's the new apartments, the
Tax
senior
credit.
housing there on the southern side. And I can't remember what the name of those apartments are called. But this is, I believe, the Pelican.
Pelican.
And then along the Dexter Drive up north is NC 4. So those are very small lots. This is very much a transitional area between multifamily and very small lot residential. And after staff has been able to review that, we felt that smaller lots could be accommodated, but we certainly wanted to maintain the residential form and density in the area, and felt like 6.1 was a zoning designation that could meet those needs. They are 6.1, I believe, is 60-foot wide lots, so they're a little bit wider lots than what it has been requested.
Are there 6.1 zones there?
There's not. There's not.
Meaning in that area, is that what you're referring to? In that?
Yeah, just adjacent, yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moses.
I know that you say they was, now he only can build 4, right?
Currently, as it is zoned, they can only build 4.
And he tries to squeeze 4 more in that spot.
That's correct.
That'd be knocking on the next person's door when they wash the bathroom, man.
So 4 would be in the 6.1 and 8 in the 6.3.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
That would be the 60 by 175.
So
So they're going to be
That's what
long,
So there's
skinny.
6 to 7,000 square foot lots, and that's a very common, most of the subdivisions that we currently have coming in to the city that are being developed, 6,000 to 7,000 square foot lots are what we are seeing, like at Elm Grove and any of the new subdivisions that are being developed.
What is the white shade?
The white is not in the city
That's
limits.
county.
Okay.
All right, I'll open the public hearing portion of this. I normally like to try those that are against to come first. That will give the ones for to defend that. So anyone that's not in favor of this request, have this gentleman back here. He's been patient. Please come to the podium, please. If you'll give us your name, sir.
My name's Richard Smith. I'm born and raised here in Florence. I've been in the construction business probably 35 years plus. Associated building about 800-900 houses here in Florence. I am pro building Florence. I live in the Kirkwood subdivision. I moved in that neighborhood about 16, 17 years ago. The reason why I moved in that neighborhood because they were large lots, the style of houses I'm looking for, the proximity where I was in Florence. I didn't have any idea that there was going to be a zoning because I live on Malden, and I guess these signs are put on Dexter. I don't do Facebook. I don't read the newspaper. So a neighbor called me and said, "Hey, did you see those signs over there?" So I had to inquire about the sign and see what's happening. So obviously what I'm disagreeing on, I am pro building those 4 houses there on those large lots, 100-foot lots. I am not pro in taking those lots, splitting it in half, and putting 50 to 60-foot houses on there. We build houses on 60-foot lots, and it's just like what you said. I can look from one window to the next window and see it. They're too close. That neighborhood, all those houses over there, if you go through there, they're large lots. They're all houses. I feel like several things can happen. Our depreciation, our value of our houses over there, and that size of those houses over there. I'm not for it, and that's the reason why I'm here tonight. I did present some information tonight that we had at the last minute. There's a covenant. When I moved in that neighborhood, that covenant protected me from someone buying a large parcel lot and splitting that parcel lot up into a size what they want to put it in there. And so that's why I'm here tonight, and I'm opposed taking that large lot, dividing it up, and putting more houses in there in a condensed area. And that's why I'm here tonight. And I hope that I've got your ears and listen to me, and I'm very nervous coming up here. I've never been up before. But
Well, you're doing a great job.
well, thank you. And I will. But like I say, I do oppose it, and I don't want to see, any more smaller houses in that neighborhood put back in there. Is what I'm looking for.
Mr.
I'm not
Smith.
against the growth. Let him keep it and put the big lots and keep it like as it is. But don't go back there in my backyard and start cutting them up in smaller houses. I don't think anybody else would like that in their neighborhood.
So, Mr. Smith, you're saying you would accept the 6.1.
And that was with the 100-foot lots. Is that correct?
Is that correct?
No, that's the 60-foot lots.
No,
As it is now, it's 100-foot lots.
that's correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Smith?
Where the covenant is in what neighborhood?
Kirkwood.
Okay.
And I submitted some,
That's
young
what
fellow
Mr.
here, I don't know his name. I submitted some
Mr. Moore
information.
talked about
That's
that.
the same thing you're talking.
Yeah.
That's correct.
But all of this is that covenant covers this area as well?
I think so, yes, ma'am. And I have a plat. We have a plat that covers those lots back over there. And it shows when this originally was drawn, it shows everything in that covenant that's given. And then it goes into shows how in that covenant, the documentations of, it cannot be balled up and split up with it.
We'll review and make certain that the recorded restricted covenants, we've got to certainly verify that, obviously. And then should they apply to this property, we'll then reach out to the property owner and have that discussion, then make that a part of our report to City Council, should that be a part of the restricted covenants.
Can I ask a question? I hate the prolong stuff, but can you look at that covenant all before we make a decision here tonight?
I would not recommend that we do that.
Yeah, we could,
I got this, I think the covenants that we've got them, did you have them stamped?
Yeah, they were stamped, they were received this afternoon. They're certified copies from the office.
Clerk of court.
Right, and I think it's very specific what they have shown.
and it applies specifically to this subject property.
I'm a little bit confused, which is nothing new. I think I heard you say you're opposed to the 6.3 and the 6.1, but you're in favor of the 4,
I'm
which
in
is the
favor.
6.1,
Make sure,
It's the current zoning.
the current zone.
The current zoning.
which is 100-foot lots, correct?
That's right.
What number is that? So I know what it is.
That is NC 15.
Okay. I don't oppose, keep it to 100-foot lots, and that's what they are now. But I think maybe what the buyer's looking for on his lots is taking the whole parcel and then chopping it up to 7, 8 lots instead of 4 lots.
I was under the impression that at 6.1 he could only have 4.
No, at 6.1, he could probably get 6 to 7, depending.
So it's just slightly less than
Slightly less. That's correct.
what he's asking for.
That's right.
And how did planning come up with that common ground? Rather than leaving it NC 15, come up with
Based upon the request and the existing adjacent properties being 6.3, NC4 to the north, which are extremely small lots. This is a very could be considered a transitional area in between the existing NC 15 and the current NC 6.3 and NC 4, and common planning practices to step that density down in between the zoning districts.
So
Just curiosity, where's your house, Mr. Smith?
On Malden. On the next block
Can we
up.
point that out?
Yes, sir. 1816. Can you pull it up? I got that lot. Let's see, 1816, where it looks like 2 lots. That's me.
is that on the corner?
One
No,
off the
it's
corner.
one off the
corner there.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the area.
I think this is my lot right here. I have 2. I have my house and I also have on the next lot too.
And the blue is the part that.
The YMCA.
Who's why? The red is where they want to
The red is where they want to take right here
cut it up.
and cut it up. And I'm opposed to cutting it up. I want them to keep everything like we've got over here, the same large lots.
And I think it falls under the covenant of Kirkwood too.
Yeah.
What they've got in their possession right now where the restrictions would apply.
One thing I'd like to mention, this is just a little housekeeping. You can't speak from the audience. If you would like this, I know you didn't know that, and I didn't explain it. It's quite all right. If you'd like to get up, I'll give you that chance to. Any more questions for Mr. Smith?
So let me be clear,
Yeah.
staff. The gentleman is speaking in favor NC 15. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
The current
Let me
zoning.
address you, and then the recommendation for NC 6.3 would allow for, is it 4 houses, 4 lots?
So currently, as it is currently zoned at NC 15, he could subdivide that into 4 lots.
Right.
He is requesting 6.3, which would allow him 8 lots, we believe.
Okay.
And then we are recommending 6.1 should rezoning take place, which would allow 6 to 7 lots. We would not we would do that math real quick.
Well, it's 450.
Yeah, 450.
So it's 450 feet long, so at the required 100 feet under the NC 15, you can get 4.5 lots, so 4 lots. If you got down to the NC 6.3, you get 8 to 9 lots, because 450 divided by 50 is 9. And then 450 divided by 60 is actually 7.5, so it gets 7 lots.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any more questions for Mr. Smith?
Can I ask him something?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so what she was just saying about the 6.1 being 6 to 7 lots, are you against that as well?
Yes, ma'am. And the reason why I'm saying that, the only way that he can put a house on that, it's going to be a very small house, maybe a shotgun style house. But once again, we would be very, very close in neighbors. Okay, and like I say, I'm in the building business. We build those houses on 60-foot lots, 50 lots, and they're close. But I feel like it's detrimental to go into that neighborhood and take some of the principles we apply today in these new subdivisions on the outskirts of Florence and the counties, all about that, and apply them here inside the middle of the city.
What is this big, right in the dead center? What is that?
That is actually a portion, it's undeveloped property.
Undeveloped woods?
Woods, currently, yes.
It's wooded and it's flooded in there, and there's a lot of water collection in it. I think there was a suit about 20 years ago, trying to build in that land, but
Yeah. If I can add also what he just commented on, if you were to go there, you'll see a bunch of ditches all throughout the woods. There's a water problem in that area when there's a strong rain in Florence. Malden will flood. You just can't drive it. It will eventually dissipate a couple hours, 4 or 5 hours, but it is a flood. So the infrastructure of our water going out in that neighborhood is somewhat better than some of the other neighborhoods that are really bad off. But those neighborhoods, when you go back right around that corner of Dexter, you'll see all those ditches in there. It's a very low-lying area down there. Even to go back in there and put that many houses in, and I don't know the infrastructure, the amount of dirt stuff you got to haul, where are you going to displace all that water? I don't know if a study needs to be done. I know when you go down to the beach and the coastal area, when you put a house in, there has to be a study done, the amount of water displaced off a roof that goes on the ground there, because of the amount of ground of absorption. And I don't know how much more absorption that you could have in that area if you put 8 to 9 houses in that one little small area there.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate you coming forward.
I guess you're done with me. Thank you, sir.
All right.
I'm sorry to take y'all's time.
Is there anyone else who'd like? I've got the gentleman in the back, then I'll get to you, and that'll be all for the against. Your name, sir?
My name's Bob Hood, and I also live in Kirkwood, and I live on the Malden Drive. The only thing I want to add is that we're getting into the water problem that we're having. I think if we've been reading in some of the
Yes.
city releases, there's a study that's going to be done, and I think Malden Drive is in that study because of the fact that it floods so significantly. And, when you turn down Malden Drive and you've had a major storm, you can't get there. You have to go back out, go down Damon, come around. The same thing happens when you come in Atwood and turn right and try to come up around that way on Ansley. The same flooding is taking place. I don't think anything should be done in this area until the study is completed by the city of Florence and they determine what they're going to do. I think if I read the newspaper, there's 5 areas that's being looked at in the city of Florence right now for water problems. So you put all these houses in there, you're just going to cause, in my opinion, additional problems that we're already having in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Odom.
Thank you.
Did you prefer to come up, sir? Your name?
Yes, sir. I'm John Malone. I live at 619 Ansley. So when you turn the corner on Ansley, I'm the third house up on it. I built my house in 2001, and the water problem that this gentleman speaks of is real. I've had water up to my front steps, and my whole backyard is standing in water, and it stands in that other big lot that you referenced over there too. It took many attempts to try to fix that water problem. And if you look at the corner of Dexter and Atwood, right here, you see a big ditch that runs in the middle of that. And until they cleaned out all of that stuff, they built that big ditch, and they make it run back into the drainage pond for that apartment complex. Nobody could use that cut through there. And that's my concern. If anybody builds a house on that corner right there, I don't know whether they're going to have the water flow going under them, or they need to pump it somewhere or something, but I don't want it back in my house. This gentleman don't want it dead. Smith doesn't want it up on Malden, and it has backed up all the way to Malden before during the rain season. We had 7 inches of rain, it just floods it out, period. And it would a lot of places, I guess. But my concern, I don't really care about the zoning, but I don't want to see them build on that corner down there that's going to interrupt the water exit that we have in there now that's keeping it from flooding.
Thank you, Mr. Malone.
And I also agree with what Mr. Smith said about the zoning. And, small houses up on the other end near the water tower, I don't see a problem with it, but I think that corner is a major issue that you need to explore further.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Moore. What is the city policy as far as engineering? Do you approve of something like this knowing that there are drainage issues and even reduce or increase the number of homes that can go there, even though it's zoned for basically 4 or 5 homes sites? Does it make sense to have the engineering done, or know that you can take care of that situation before we allow someone to add extra?
So if we were to, if he were to not have even requested rezoning and had moved forward with the subdivision,
Went forward NC 15.
as it currently is right now, we do review that. The engineering we know of, obviously through recent rain events and what we're currently doing with the stormwater master plan and the bond money we've taken out to do some of the improvements in this area. We're aware of the runoff concerns in this area. So we would review that, make sure that it would not increase any issues or cause any flooding concerns upstream or downstream from this property. No matter how the property gets developed, we'll conduct that review. It will go through a very similar review that the townhome will go through.
This area off of Caldwell Avenue, the 6.3 area, in fact, all of the 6.3 area, there aren't individual lots.
No, those are all multifamily.
Okay, all of them are.
That's right.
Okay. What about the OSR designation? What is that?
That is our elevated water tank.
That's the water tower he spoke about a minute ago?
That's right.
All right, I'm going to continue on with the public hearing. Now I'll allow those that may be in favor of this to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Bob Weaver, engineer.
Happy
I
New
was
Year,
asked-
sir.
to look at this property very briefly. So I don't live out there, okay? I live on this side of town, but close to Castro Drive, but close to where you live. So anyway, but I looked at the lot sizes. If you compare to 6.1 to 6.3, this is a deep piece of land. It's 164 feet deep. So if you figured 50 feet, you end up with about 8,300 square feet per lot, which is more than your 6,300 that you have in normal RG3 zoning. Okay, you see a lot of subdivisions with 60-foot wide lots, like we spoke of earlier. But he's wanting to put 56 and a half here. Okay, so it's in between 50 and 60, but there's no zoning for that. So, and it was planning 8 lots. I think you would have 7 lots if you go with 60-foot wide, which is what, the 6.1 zone?
That's correct.
Right. And the client will have to speak if he's opposed to that or in favor of that. I'm just giving you already know what our dimensions are, okay?
Right.
That's all I'm talking about. The drainage, the city would most likely know more about the drainage behind this site than I would, since I did not engineer all the multifamily projects behind Atwood. Okay, so this ditch that everyone's talking about goes through the ponds they just built behind this site and end up going across the Effingham Highway and goes out towards Walmart and meanders through by Baptist Temple, which I did engineer, but the ditch used to run through the Walmart site, and I don't know exactly what improvements have been made here behind this site, but I know they built at least 2 ponds to slow the water down.
Any questions for Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, I got one. He said he did engineer. Do you think it's feasible to stay with the 4 houses rather than adding more there? I know he's looking at money-wise. That's what everybody's looking at now. But they could be smaller houses, smaller slab houses, and they won't be the houses that's out there now. They'll be downsizing, am I right?
I can tell you what I see based on what's being built on other small lots. You have smaller houses which have smaller footprints,
Right.
like 1,500 to 1,800 square foot houses on small lots. You might have a 3,000 square foot house on a big lot. So you end up with about the same square footage, impervious ratio, where if you built 8 small houses versus 4 big houses. You see what I'm saying?
I got you.
The square footage.
I understand
And the
it.
driveways on a big house are usually bigger because you do a side-loaded garage. So you put a 20-foot driveway by the edge of your house and have a side-loaded garage. That's all that we used to do in the 80s and 90s. Everybody built a big house when land was cheap, but it's not cheap anymore. So I'm just telling you what most people do on these small lots. So you end up about the same impervious ratio.
So the
That's what
garage,
counts.
the garage will be on the front instead of the side.
Yes. So you have less concrete. Usually. And on a 50-foot lot, you don't have room to put a garage behind the house. Is that it?
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Would John like to come forward? Okay, please.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm Malhar Mehta, and we, like me and my dad, we own Fifth Holdings LLC. So, concerned about the storm, like the flooding and all, right? There is, like we saw, a stormwater drain running parallel to the Atwood Avenue, and it connects back to the ditch in the pond. So as far as the flooding is concerned, you know, we like there is a stormwater drain that is right now available, and it's not on our lot. It runs behind the lot, and like there is a drain on the Atwood Avenue, and that's probably city owned, so we cannot touch that either. And without doing anything, there won't be any flooding issues. And as far as we are concerned about the lot size, that's 56 feet we are looking at, and we like the house plans, the modern house plans, at what we saw in general, like at the grow at the Ebenezer and everywhere. Like you can go up to 2,500 square feet house building 2-story, and I don't think it's going to be anything less than 250,000. So the houses we are looking to build and sell, that's around 250. That the range is 250 and 350,000. So we aren't building anything that's going to depreciate the neighborhood either. And as far as concerning about the flood issues, we already have a drain, a stormwater drain running at the Edward Avenue and connecting the ditch that drains right into the pond.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for this gentleman? Thank you very much. All right, I will close the public hearing portion of this, and Mr. Moore, I'm struggling with this a little bit.
Now, I certainly want to note that it is within Planning Commission's right to recommend a different zoning than what even staff has recommended. So we have NC 15 as it is currently zoned, which is the 100-foot wide lots. In between 6.1 and NC 15 is NC 10, which is 80-foot lots, 80-foot wide lots.
And how many lots can you get? Ms. Lane, do the math.
450. It's 5.5. So he would be able to get 5 lots out of that.
Okay, so we're at NC 15. NC 10 is the first we've heard. Then we're talking about 6.3 and then 6.1.
That's correct.
NC 10. Mr. Weaver mentioned that these lots were deep, I believe. So they'll be narrow and deep.
Yeah, they're about 165 feet.
So it is 5.5?
Well, they're about 165 feet deep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At NC 10, you would be able to get 5 lots, as opposed to NC 15, you would be at 4 lots.
All right.
Can I just has the builders considered building the 4 lots? Did they express any interest in building less lots?
No, the applicant has requested the 6.3.
And he's been informed of the 6.1 recommendation, but he wants to stay at 6.3.
Okay.
I'm all for single-family homes, and I'm all for building single-family homes. But I have seen single-family homes built like we call them barracks. That's what I call them, barracks. That's when you're building them close together. And in fact, you can go to some of the subdivisions and have these fabulous houses also. It's the same way. Some of them are still the same way. They build them closer. I can spit out one window, spit another main window. But what I'm saying is that I'm all for single-family home. I'm 100% for single-family homes. But when you're trying to squeezing that, I just don't see it that way. Because if, say like a family, I come from a large family, and then the family have a gathering, then somebody complain about I'm parking on your parking, I'm using my parking on my grass, or you this and that. And that's where I would love to see the lots a little wider and stuff. And that's my opinion, and I'm just one person, but that's the way I feel. I've always, that's the way I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Moses. Any other comments? And I'll call for a motion.
Yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of hair to this.
Yeah.
And I'm just not comfortable making a decision with this much unknown that seems to be out there. And I will say, as of right now, if you force me to make a decision on this, I generally, in cases like this, when we are looking at rezoning a piece of property, that is a hurdle to me personally that the developer has to overcome when there is objection by adjacent property owners. And so, but I don't feel like I can see this case clearly, particularly with the water issues and with this potential deed covenant. And because I think we could be wasting our time. And it's a very difficult decision to make. And I don't know why we have to make this decision with that much unknown out there. I personally would like some clarification on these issues that were brought before us tonight before I'm comfortable. So is it,
Can we vote to
can I, are we to the
We'll
point
call
where I
for
can make a
motion.
motion?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
call for a motion.
My motion would be that we defer this for 30 days and give city staff time to run this down. Let's check on the validity of the claims made here with the water issues, and then come back next month and try to make a more informed decision. But if I had to decide now, I probably would have to
I second your
And I would say.
vote against.
I think we clear on that. I have a motion and a second to defer to next month and rely on city staff to address some of these concerns and questions.
Yes.
Any discussion? Mr. Moore, did you want to say something?
Yes, historically, Planning Commission has done a very good job when residents have come to speak out against a project, giving the project more time to allow the developer to speak to the residents that it's impacting, and especially given the new information, allowing staff to look at the new information that has been provided and come back before Planning Commission at a later date.
Well, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Do you know if the developers were aware of the covenant? Do we know?
We do not know. City staff was unaware until this evening from residents.
Usually when you buy a piece of property, you do a title search and, look for those kind of things. And the owner of this property may or may not be aware of it, but I don't think it's going to change our decision tonight. Okay, I have a motion and a second to defer to next month. Is there any further discussion?
All in favor, it's been motion second.
call for
All in
question?
favor?
All those in favor say aye. Nays? And the ayes have it. All right. That was a learning experience there. And I appreciate the staff and the commissioners for handling it that way. Okay, the last item on the agenda is PC 2023-04. This is a request to zone NC 6.3 pending annexation. Ms. Lane.
Chairman, this is a family piece of land here we want to rezone, so I'm gonna have to, sit out there.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you bringing that forward.
Okay.
All right. These are two properties that are located at the intersection of South Church near East National Cemetery Road. one of the few ones that are still in the county, not in the city limits. And yes, Mr. Moses' family has requested that they be annexed into the city. And the purpose for it is that, as you can see, these are small lots, and they would like to build single-family homes on them. The zoning all around it is activity center, but activity center does not permit single-family homes. So that is the reason that the NC 6.3 has been requested, so that they would be able to build single-family homes on these two parcels. And it's not without precedent. As you can see, there's NC 6.3 is that yellow, just kitty corner across the street. And that would enable, as I said, for them to build the houses. The future land use map actually has it as industrial. The area is a mixture of residential and commercial. There's the family home is right to the north of it, but around it is some commercial uses as well. So that is the purpose for the NC 6.3 rather than the AC, so that they can build on it. And here's some pictures of it. They are two vacant lots, and there's a house behind it, and then there's a business behind it, or a house next to it, and there's businesses around it. So staff feels that would be appropriate considering the use that the owners want to put on there. So that concludes staff's report.
Ms. Lane, the current zoning is industrial in
No, that's the future land use map
Okay.
recommendation. The current
Right now it's
zoning-
unzoned?
It's unzoned because this is an annexation as well.
Right. Okay. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, we do have a public hearing for this. If there's anyone against this, we ask you to come forward. Seeing none, anybody in favor of this besides Mr. Moses? Sorry about that, big man.
Duly noted.
Seeing none, I will close the public hearing portion of this and call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve as requested. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Like signs nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Moses? Please let the record be noted that it has been, a motion has been accepted and seconded, and we have voted yea for adjournment.